Hey, I am Adam Sliver Trade, and I'm here with my good friend Bones Trades, one of my favorite educators on not only trading YouTube, Twitter. He's always constantly giving education for free to everybody. He talks about flow. He talks about levels. I remember seeing this guy with maybe 20 followers and he has become one of the greats. I mean, I have nothing but praise for my guy. And so it's been an honor to kind of discuss this possibility of doing a podcast, talking to more people, reaching out. And together we came up with, we're not financial advisors, right? That's what we are. So it's what we are not. So I would like to welcome everybody here, and I would like to welcome Bones. How are you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, man. This is definitely something we talked about, brainstorm for a while, but finally putting it together is something, pretty crazy. As Adam said, he noticed me about 15, 20 followers. And to me, I looked at first, I was like, who is this dude? I'd seen him before, right? But at the time, I think you're about 10 to 15K follower area. So to me, that was like, holy, that's a lot of followers, right? And so that was like, wow, like, people are actually seeing this. So that was a big thing for me. And then education is definitely the piece I like. Like alerts are cool and all until they don't work. And that's another reason why I think pairing up with Adam is something that benefits not only us, but everyone out there, just because, we do push that education piece, teaching how to fish, as a lot of people say. So that's something I'm really excited for.
Absolutely, man. I think I wouldn't rather be doing this with anyone else. And I think that there's a lot that we can talk about that is sort of different from what other people have to offer. And, I know there's a lot of podcasts out there, and I just kind of want to give a unique perspective because to me, when I think about my mission, and I want to hear what you have to think about this too, my mission for, maybe it's just Twitter, or my mission for doing this alone is I'm taking time out of my day to do this every single day. And I enjoy it. It's an honor for me to do it. And the fact that it's become, normal and almost expected that I see people, making a great amount of money or making some important decision in their life. And the fact that I'm able to play a part in that is honestly a true honor. And that's my mission. Since I have the ability to do this, I want to do it to the best of my abilities because I know that it means something to people. And so for me, this is just the next step in the direction of how can I provide and help others learn and grow, not only physically but mentally as well.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think the biggest thing that really makes me happy about maybe it's posting a YouTube video, something like that, is just when people reach out and they say, I was on the verge of quitting, or something's not clicking, but I'm starting to get a hang of it. That really sticks out to me, not only because I had a nice impact on this, but also the fact that these people are putting in the effort, putting in the time, because, trading can be very, very rewarding in terms of financial side, not having to work that 9 to 5 if that's not your style, right? But it also is just, a really, really cool thing to see these people pushing those goals in one big click or one little bitty change can make that big, big step from maybe not profitable or a lot of chops to being profitable and repeating what I talk about a lot in a system where we do see, revenue coming in. And maybe it's just a hobby. It's also cool to see that as well when it comes to, trading. And my mission is, not only pushing myself, but a big thing with trading is the community. And I've met some, pretty cool people who I would have never met if it wasn't for going into trading or even starting at Twitter, right? Like I have a little skeleton that's doing a dab as my PFP on Twitter. I mean, whatever. But beyond that, I've met people that truly are way smarter than me, and that pushes me every day as well. So that's something I'm forever thankful for.
You bring up an incredible point, man. It's, there's no price tag that you can put on community. And I didn't really realize that until I met some of the people who are around me today. And I've grown infinitely from them, D-Book, K1, Mont, Rocky B, Mans. I mean, there's countless people I could go on that made a difference on me. But here's the common theme, Bones. It's, they took time out of their lives to invest in me, right? And I'm, some of it may have been mutual, sure. But taking time out of your life to invest in somebody else is something that can multiply, right? That can lead to them doing that for the next group of people. And I love seeing the fact that, we're doing this together, right? Because, like, okay, you mentioned you're not as smart as some of these people. Well, we're all looking at the same charts. We're all trading the same tickers for the most part. Anyone can do this. And that's why I'm so glad that me and you are on the same page. Like, you help people recognize that you don't have to be a rocket scientist to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, also goes to say a reason why I like the stock market so much is the market doesn't care who you are unless, you're a market maker or whatever. We'll leave them out of that for this. But the market doesn't care who you are. They can't see behind the screen, right? It doesn't matter, where you come from, how you were brought up. Everyone can be their own person when it comes to the market. Everyone can be successful. It's just about putting that work in, right? So that's one thing that I like a lot, especially, there's things that go on in the world that we can't really control, stuff like that. But when it comes to trading, most everything that happens on the screen in front of us, we can control. There's going to be knives in trading. There's going to be stuff like that. But it's more about how we respond to it. And that's the biggest thing, even in life, the response to the outcome is the big picture thing. How do we bounce back from that? How do we evolve and how do we learn? And that's something I've really learned a lot with trading, and also, taking the time and getting older, maturing. That's something that life has taught me, and trading has definitely taught me a lot of recent.
Yeah. Love that, man. And I know you kind of just went a little bit into your story, and, I feel like I don't necessarily want to talk too much about, oh, well, here's the first thing that I traded. Actually for me, it was Hexo, oddly enough, the weed stock in 2019, January, I think. But I want to talk about a fun topic. Bones, I want you to walk me through your biggest loser to date. Don't mention any dollar amounts, but I want you to walk me through your thought process. And then on top of that, talk to me about how you looked back at it after it was over.
Yeah. So my biggest loser today, I've told this story, been out there on Twitter a couple times, nothing really in depth, but PayPal, I believe it was September of this year area. So basically PayPal had gapped down, and it was trading at about 290. And the first mistake I made was I took
290.
it was up there. But the first mistake I made was I was trying to swing weeklies that were $20 out of the money. And the only reason I even thought this was possible because there was a gap above and it had tested. It was a big bullish engulfing, testing that gap. And of course I was like, oh, pretty bullish candle. It's going to test that gap. Next day it tests the gap, denied hard. But the young trader in me was sized in way too heavy, like 75, 80% of my account was in this one play. And I also had the bias that this can't go against me. It's going to fill the gap, right? And then I saw the next day someone tweeted out an alert about PayPal calls, and I was like, oh yeah, that confirmed my bias even more. And so looking back at it, this was the best thing to happen to me. And the reason being, I had absolutely no risk management at the time. Previously, the past 6 months before that, stocks were running absolutely crazy, insane bullish market. So I could have thrown anything I wanted in and thought I was a great trader, but most of the time, it was luck. absolutely terrible entries, it didn't matter. It would turn green just because we were in that very, very big bullish market.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing I really learned, was that risk management piece. And because of that, that's definitely one thing I focus on every single day. I have a very tight stop loss now, maybe too tight at times, but it really taught me that. And then also, actually trading price action as opposed to letting my emotions and something that could happen and the greed of that really, change my trading. And that's one thing that also to this day, I definitely struggle with at times. There's definitely days where I'm green, maybe 5-6%, and then I get this greed factor, like, I'm Rocky Balboa, I'm boxing, whatever, beating people up. And then it just, over trading, I turn red, and that's such a big emotional drain, seeing go from green to red. So that's one thing that, still have to work on to this day, but it's definitely gotten better ever since I lost on PayPal.
Then that story feeds very well into my own. One name that, it almost, there's actually a couple. Probably the better story is Qualcomm, but the biggest loss would be Moderna, but it's not as good of a story. But either way, okay, Moderna was puts, Qualcomm was calls, but I'll go with the Moderna puts because I think it's a more relatable story. So I'm ready to slap these things right off open. I mean, I'm so bearish on Moderna, still am, and I don't even know why that thing would ever have a green tick. And so, I just hammer the puts. I hammer them, and they're up about 15 to 20%. And so I'm saying, wow, that was really quick. I mean, keep in mind it's a Friday, so that's a really important point. I almost went in the money on the puts, and they flew down. I was like, perfect, this is great. Couldn't be wrong here. So my pride starts kicking in. I'm like, yeah, see, I knew Moderna was a terrible stock. I knew it was going to go down, and then suddenly it pops, right? And you just get that one outlier candle that's like, whoa, suddenly I'm break even, and I say, well, I'm not going to scale, obviously, because it was just right down there. It's just going to go right back down. I'm not worried. And then boom, there's the subsequent one that just goes, it keeps going up and it doesn't dip. And so I'm like, okay, the only logical thing here is that I double my position. and so I did. And I was like, okay, my cost is now a lot lower and I'm great. It's can't wait for it to go down. And then it kept going up. So I doubled that position. And I think you can pretty much tell me how the end of the story goes. It just kept going up for the rest of the day. And you know what? That happens. But I think that this is a good segue into kind of a topic that we wanted to really dig into was bias, right? You mentioned greed. I mentioned pride. Tell me what bias means to you and how you are trying not to have it on a daily basis and how you're trying to regulate that greed that may go alongside it.
Yeah, so with bias, I think it's, only trading one way. Like we might be leaning one way based off of market the day before or price action the day before. But when it really comes down to it, as a day trader, it's about the day of the trade, right? I can't really do anything about yesterday's trade. So for me,
Right.
It's creating a watch list with both levels. And that's a reason I do that is because, I want to trade price action, and it also helps me to realize that there is a downside. A lot of times, I think most of us are accustomed to thinking that, calls are the way to go, which is more of a human nature thing in my honest opinion. But it's really just, playing both sides and realizing that price action overcomes whatever the bias we do have. And the way that I really do that is, through watch list creation and playing both sides. One of my favorite ways to play my watch list is off of a failed call or put trigger. And in this case, it helps me realizing that where people step in, being able to realize candles, stuff like that. It has really helped me a lot when it comes to not being biased. You talk a lot about key levels, and at the time I first began trading, I was thinking more on like a daily basis. I was trying to take day trades off of daily candles, and I was missing big moves. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? And where can I get in better? And then it took me a while to really understand and break down, the 15 and the hourly chart, and really understand price action, which has helped me a ton when it comes to eliminating that bias.
That's, obviously I'm somebody who religiously loves the 15-minute chart. I spend all of my afternoon prepping time pretty much in either the 15 or the hourly, and I'll go out to the daily just to catch patterns and kind of in macro stuff, because I use daily, weekly, monthly, all of that for trends. I mean, I care about the trends, the greater trend, because that's what's important. But then you also need to be able to read what are the intermediate levels. I'm not planning to swing this. If my position timing is 15 minutes or 10 minutes that I'm going to be in a trade, then I'm pretty sure I should be looking at lower time frames in order to find the key levels that I need. So for me, bias, it's a lot about self-awareness, right? And realizing when you think that bias may be creeping in. How well do you know yourself and your tendencies? So, for example, I created my watch list tonight, and I noticed that a lot of my focus was kind of on the bullish side of the plays. However, I know in the back of my head that these are very capable both way plays. So I know that come tomorrow, I'm going to be able to look at these 5 plays, and I know that it's not going to have a certain story that's already tied to it. The only thing that will make a story or make me have tunnel vision is myself. So for me to regulate that, 2 things, mainly, don't let it become a pride thing. Not every trade is going to be green, and that's just part of the game. Accept that. Realize, it stinks when people say, "Oh, the paper cuts added up." Yes, that happens. I mean, everybody has red days. No matter how good the setup is, every moment in the market is unique. If it goes minus 10, 15%, just cut it and move on. And for me, it's tunnel vision, right? In the Moderna play, I said, this thing is just going to keep going down. I kept adding to it, and I was never realizing the bigger picture. And I think you definitely agree with that. And if you want to speak a little bit more toward like overconfidence, or kind of, being euphoric, or maybe, down in the dumps, kind of, how do you get that good middle ground personally?
Yeah, so I think a big thing that oftentimes, newer traders and myself, even to this day, is the what ifs, right? Like, what if a ticker knifes on me? Well, that's why we have risk management, right? So one thing, being able to trust key levels, like, it's easy to go back and look on a trade and realize, I should have entered here. It's a lot harder when you're in the moment, right? But being able to really tell and trust your key levels that you've worked so hard, you've practiced and studied so much, is really, a big thing for me. Another thing with knives are going to happen. Like, it's just part of the game. Losses are going to happen. But just really going into a trade with that both side open, both eyes open, I think is a very big thing. Another thing with overconfidence, I'd say position sizing is a big thing with that. I personally don't ever go over 10% on one single trade. And most of the times I'm around that 5% of my entire capital. Just because, when I am overconfident, I trade terrible. Most of those times turn into losses, and I don't want to lose an entire account on some play that, maybe I have a hot win streak, and then I trade terrible, and it just blows off all these wins and all this time that I've put in to try and win these plays over and over. When in the end, I think a big thing as well is that actually I started doing was I actually go in lower or less capital when I've had really good days. And the reason being is that overconfidence, solely that. I get very overconfident, 2 to 3 back-to-back banger trades, and I'm executing well, but at the same time, I don't want to feed this overconfidence and this pride or greed even that we talk about so heavily just because of, a couple good trades when one trade could, blow up my account. So that's one thing I think I really like to focus on, just taking a step back when we are trading bad or even good, for that matter. Just take a step back, take a deep breath, and just realize what's in front of us.
That's a really good point, and something that you said almost makes me, because I'm sort of a what's the word? I kind of like to go against what's common, and so when you said I had a good day, so I therefore took less size.
Yeah. So
Think about the opposite of that, right?
yeah. So I had a bad day, take more size.
Right. So, but are you inhibiting yourself, Bones? If you're firing on all cylinders, right, and you've had a good day, you don't want to give it away, are you becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy that you're going to cap yourself at that? Like, are you telling yourself, okay, I'm capped here, I'm not capable of taking and succeeding on another full-size play and really hitting it home, right? Are you
Right.
capping yourself? Not that I'm just trying to play the devil. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. But
Oh no.
I found myself in the same situation lately. Like, I'll have an incredible morning, like very first trade will be incredible. And I'll say, man, I'm just taking light size the rest of the day. And I
Yeah.
said, well, if I took that full size, I mean, I would have had a freaking best day ever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Um,
are you what's holding yourself back?
I think you definitely bring up a very good point. I think that's definitely something that can happen. But for me, it's more of a keeping myself in check as opposed to capping myself. Um, and also realizing that there's always tomorrow. But I think the big thing there is, just preserving capital when, at some point you're going to lose a trade, right? But I don't want that trade to be a massive trade. So I want all my trades to be around the same percent of my entire capital, which when I'm trading with profits, I can be a little bit more greedy in a sense. I can be a little bit less loose or more loose with my stop loss and stuff like that. But that's also capital that is, it's profit, right? So at the end of the day, if I lose on that trade, but I still have gained, and it was just profit, I'm still up on my account from whatever the starting balance is. So that's one thing. I think I definitely understand, capping myself, which I never really thought about it in that sense. But for me, it's more of just, keeping my personal greed in check because I'm definitely one. When I'm hot, I'm like, I'm really hot. Give me another trade.
Yeah.
But I think that's more to control that as opposed to capping myself.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with you, man. For me, it's kind of it'll be a mix of both. But rolling up or rolling down is kind of a good way to mitigate that. You put yourself in a good position. You've already made gains and you're just kind of rolling up with profits. So up or down, I totally, I get it. And I think putting yourself in the stress-free position is what unlocks your very best mental capacity, right?
Yeah.
When you're in a position and say you've already taken, well, here's the best possible way. Say you scaled 50% of your position at 100, right? You're already out for the entire trade. So the rest is just house money. Are you going to be scared to just put your stop at break even and let it ride? Or your
Yeah.
stop at 75%? Are you ever going to be scared?
No.
No, of course not. Right. What we need to do is how can we think about how we can get ourselves to that stress-free
Right.
mentality.
And when you are stressed, you trade a lot better. You see things a lot more clear. So that's, another part of that.
Exactly. Exactly. And, you know, kind of on the lines of clarity, I think something that isn't talked about enough is how, as traders, we can so easily separate, or so easily or not so easily, right? Separate our job slash hobby of trading, and we're making money with money, losing money with money, right? And
Right.
separating that from our emotional being and the rest of our life. How do we do that? So I kind of want your take on trading as well as balancing that with life and other activities and other relationships you may have.
Right. So for me, something most of you probably don't know, I play collegiate baseball. It's my 5th year. I know I'm getting old, whatever. But for me, uh, that's been like, school and baseball, right? Always have those two things. But I also, with trading, like I have mornings, right? So for me, it's about stepping away from the computer after an allotted time, or maybe it's an allotted percent. If I'm, 2 to 3, maybe even 5% on the account, depending on how well I'm trading, I'm just going to step away from the computer and realize, there's more in life than just trading. Like I had a good day, but I can also be a good person at the same time. I can work on, maybe it's school, as boring as it sounds. Maybe it's out, baseball. Maybe I need to work out more. Maybe I need to work on my nutrition, something like that. So I think it's really just realizing that there is more to life than trading. The best part for me about trading is I can work, in a sense, an hour a day and make decent money. So that is really exciting to me. But I also, as a person, as just an overall human being, need to realize that there's more than just that hour. Like I can just go ahead and take advantage of my day. And I think that's one thing that I have it written on my wall, make yourself a better person every day, and realize that I can make myself a better trader. But once trading's done, leave the trading behind, realize that there's more to trading or more to life than trading, and pursue that, that amount of life. Another big thing is, mental health. And I think staring at a computer for, maybe it's somehow you trade 9:30 to 4 every day. That's just draining, right? Like, maybe it's a warm day. Go outside. Just enjoy life, and what it has to offer us is a big thing. And, mental health is something that's absolutely huge, especially with the pandemic, being, locked in houses, not being able to see loved ones, not being able to see your friends as much, whatever it may be. Mental health and, emotion, stuff like that are the number one priority. Your own mental health, if you can boost it as much as possible, you will trade better. Your life, you'll see life with the more positive aspect. Maybe you lose a trade, right? If you let that affect your overall mental health and your emotions, that's going to drag you down for the day. Even on a bad day, we can go outside, do whatever you love to do. I mean, there's obviously hobbies everyone has. It's going to be different for all of us, but go out and pursue those. To me, there's more to life than just behind the screen trading, right? It definitely makes up a big part of my life, and I'm thankful for it. But I also have to realize that, there is more to life than trading.
I love everything about that, man. I completely agree. And I think it's so important that we focus on keeping ourselves in the right state of mind, because like I spoke about self-fulfilling prophecies earlier, if you come in and your mind is already out of whack, or you're focused on something else, or you're distracted, it puts you in the situation to where it's already difficult enough for you to succeed. Then how am I going to do this in a complex market where it's a zero sum game, right? Like I lose money, somebody else gained that money, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So if I'm not at peak performance, how am I going to expect myself to thrive in a situation like that? So it is very, very hard. And initially, for me, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago, it was hard for me to stomach losses, right? Realizing that it's part of the game. It was one of the hardest realities for me to take in, because, when you put an actual dollar value on that, or you realize, man, I could have bought, a steak dinner with that, right?
Right.
It starts to get in your head a little bit. And my best advice for people, if you ever feel that way, or you start to feel down on yourself, or you start to feel hopeless, helpless, like this isn't for you, just as you zoom out on the chart, zoom out on your own life, zoom out and see what you've done to get where you are right now. And sure, you could say, oh, I'm just an utter failure. Okay, zoom out outside of trading. Look at everything else. You did enough to get from where you were to where you are right now. And for me, realizing that's why I wanted to call this today intro, right? This is today. We breathe today. We take in today, and we're not guaranteed tomorrow. And it's of utmost importance to make sure that you're happy with yourself, you're happy with who you are, because if you come into, especially, a ruthless game like this, and you're not all mentally there, it might be a good idea to step back. Okay. But if you feel like you have that comfort, that confidence in yourself, feel like you have that confidence, feel like, not like you're indestructible, but confident. That's where you can say, okay, I am at my peak. And if you don't feel good and your head's not right, that's okay. It's okay to not be okay, right? We all go through it all the time. And it's about recognizing what you're feeling, recognize the emotions that are behind what you're feeling, identify those emotions, and then deal with them within your own head. And then, put them in their box and say, okay, emotion, there you go. There you are, done with you. Okay. Sort it and put it away, and then move on. That's what I have to say about that, Bones.
Yeah,
I don't know
absolutely.
if anything else you wanted to pitch in on this.
All I know is, Commission over here about to make me cry with these inspirational words. But anyways, we talked about community earlier, right? And I think that's another big part of community that can help. Just like talking to the people that, they may be a trader, or you may trade with them, but just talking about things in life, get your head off of the emotions. Maybe you had a bad day. So what? Like, it's going to happen to all of us. It's, I talked about it earlier. It's about how we bounce back. And I think a big way is, that community, that sense of community. It might not be traders. It might be, family or friends, stuff like that really can help when it comes to our mental game. Because, realizing that these people care about me, they love me. They want to see what's best for me. And they don't care if I traded, good or bad. They care about the person I am. So that really, is something I try to keep in mind on my worst days, is stuff like that.
Yeah, there's people who care, right? And not only not everybody has people who are around them, who are able to support on a daily basis, which is okay. But love hearing your dog.
Yeah, man, it's going sicko mode in the background.
Not all of us have people that are directly in person around us. For those of you who may not have that, I would recommend reaching out to people on Twitter. I don't know, talk to people on Twitter. You'd be surprised. I'm just telling you, a lot of people who may feel like they don't have a community, just reach out to somebody. DM some person and maybe say, hey, would you want to exchange trade ideas? Believe it or not, you're going to laugh. Probably when I had not that I think in terms of followers, but just putting things into perspective. When I maybe had like 600 and D-Book had 5,000, I DM'd D-Book and I said, "Hey man, would you ever want to, just pitch plays back and forth?" Kind of funny, right?
Yeah, now looking back, that's someone you definitely admire and talk about stuff daily, form that little friendship. But you never know where one DM can lead, right? And I think
Exactly.
that's something pretty cool as well.
Yes, there's no doubt about that. I think community is, I'm so glad you brought it up because that is of utmost importance. Anybody who feels alone, lonely, like, it can help with every part of the battle. With, talking about through this bias, this greed, an accountability partner, or, mental health. That is, community is something that can help you with that, and it can make you better, all at the same time. So, Bones, this has been, an absolute pleasure to do, this first podcast. I hope everybody enjoys it. Feel free to let us know things that you would want us to talk about in future episodes, or anything. Let us know what you think. We're here to be relatable. We're not here to preach at anybody, and we're not here to flaunt anything, or really give lessons. Honestly, we just kind of want to chat and talk about real life stuff that most people probably aren't hearing. So, Bones, it's been an absolute pleasure, man.
Appreciate it, man. And another thing go off that, we'll talk about options EDU, right? And that's something we both strive for. But we also want this to be more of a thing that, a lifestyle, a relatable thing. And that's something I think that we both really, really strive for with this, while also pushing that options EDU. So that's something, with most of these are going to go over and deal with stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly, man. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in. This is, Not Financial Advisors, and we will be back soon. Thank you.